and welcome in to the Patrick Party pregame show. We are so excited that you are here watching our show. We had a little bit of technical difficulties getting off the ground this morning, but we were able to get our show going, and it's going to be another great college football weekend. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. We have lots going on in the world of sports, so it's going to be a great weekend. Let's go ahead and just recap what's been going on in the sports world up until today. We've been having lots of baseball. ALCS going to Game 7. Astros were down 3-0 to the Rays. Astros have fought all the way back to tie that series at 3-3, so we get Game 7 tonight. Braves, Dodgers also playing Game 6 tonight. Braves were up 3-1, lost last night. Max Fried will be pitching for them tonight. We also named an NBA champion since the last time we had the Patrick Party pregame show. Last Sunday, the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron James won his 4th ring. The Lakers won their 17th championship, tying the Celtics with 17 for the most in the NBA. We had Monday night football. We had Tuesday night football. We actually didn't have Thursday night football. So a lot going on in the NFL. COVID has been crazy as ever in the sports world, specifically in both college and the NFL. We have lots to talk about when it comes to all of COVID. So many storylines dominating today with all of the games in relation to COVID-19. So we have lots going on. And we have a jam-packed show. We have a couple of news segments. We'll be talking about the spread a little bit. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And we have lots to break down here on the Patrick Party pregame show, the October 17th edition. So let's go ahead and get on into how we always like to start our show, our Saturday slate. Let's go ahead and kick it off now with Georgia Tech and Clemson, a big game in Bobby Dodd Stadium. Clemson, they had the special treatment. They were the big game. They played Miami last week and ended up not being that great of a game. Clemson did about what we thought Clemson would do. Clemson looked dominant. There weren't too many surprises there. They got up big. Miami, maybe they weren't the 7th best team in the country. I think we said it here a couple of times last Saturday. So we'll see. Now, Georgia Tech, they were truly terrible last year. And I really think Jeff Collins from Georgia Tech, I think he's a good coach. I really do. It was just such a drastically different scheme he was trying to implement in Atlanta. They really just did the option. They didn't have any wide receivers. I mean, if you were a wide receiver, anybody could have been wide receiver at Georgia Tech the last 20 years. You didn't do anything. But now they've really kind of revamped it. They have a new young quarterback. We're going to see how Georgia Tech, do we expect Georgia Tech to win? Probably not. But if they can just compete, I think that would really take some positive steps. I mean, they were down 45-0 at halftime last year. So we'll just see what improvements Ramblin' Wreck has made. Then you have the Auburn Tigers traveling up to Williams-Brice Stadium to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks on ESPN at noon today. A big road game for the Auburn Tigers traveling up. South Carolina hasn't beat Auburn since way back pre-1950s. It's been quite a while. The Tigers have had their number since they've been in the SEC. Notable games they played in 2011. They played in 2014. Steve Spurrier's last game against Auburn. They played in that 2010 SEC championship game when Auburn went on to win the national championship. They also played in 2010 in the regular season. And, of course, many times before that as well. So it's going to be a big game. Will Muschamp, this would be a huge win for him. But Auburn really needs to get another quality road win in the SEC. So we're going to see how this one goes. Auburn didn't do so great in Athens. But I think there's a big difference between Georgia and South Carolina. So this one will be on ESPN in the noontime slot right after College Game Day from Williams-Brice Stadium. Then we on the SEC Network also in your noon or 11 o'clock Central Time slot from Neyland Stadium on the SEC Network. We have Kentucky and Tennessee. Tennessee did not impress me. They lost by more than 20, and they were given a free touchdown. Georgia snapped it over their quarterback's head, Stetson Bennett. The first play of the game, Tennessee got a touchdown, led right off the bat. If Georgia didn't even pretty much spot them those 7 points, they won by like 30-something. So is Tennessee a good team? Yes. I think they're more on the side of average when it comes to the SEC East because they really just haven't shown that they can compete with the big boys yet. And then Kentucky. hasn't gotten off to the best start. They lost to Ole Miss. They lost to Auburn. They did beat Arkansas to get their first win of the year last year at home at Kroger Field. Or not Arkansas, my bad. They beat Mississippi State last week to get their first win of the year. Mike Leach only scored 2 points. We'll talk about that. That's really changed what we thought about Mississippi State. So we'll see. It's going to be a big game on Rocky Top. Then we have the Louisville Cardinals taking on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame, number 4 in the country. This will be on NBC at their standard kind of 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, kind of in the middle of your noon and afternoon games. They'll be taking on Notre Dame. Notre Dame will be taking on Louisville in Notre Dame Stadium. It's a big game. Cardinals haven't looked as great as we thought they would. We were surprised how good they were last year. I mean, I say good. I mean, they just took some improvements from the disaster that was the Bobby Bowden era, or the end of it at least. Lamar Jackson was good. And they really took some steps. They've kind of taken a step back this year. It's an all-ACC schedule. We'll see if they can really compete with Notre Dame. This game really interests me, though. Arkansas, Ole Miss, Razorback Stadium, SEC Network at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. Arkansas almost beat the Tigers on the Plains. It took a last-second field goal for Auburn to get the win against Arkansas. And then Ole Miss, they have a lot of offense. I think the matchup you're going to want to look for in this game is that Ole Miss offense against that Arkansas defense. I think Felipe Franks, when he was at Florida, he was really he'd have this amazing game, then he'd have an awful game. He was kind of all over. It was riding the crazy train a little bit. You didn't know. He'd throw for 400 yards, then he'd throw 3 interceptions the next game. You didn't really know what you were getting out of him. Can he perform against a truly terrible Ole Miss defense? Probably one of the worst in the country. We'll have to see. I think this is going to be a really interesting game. Watch for Arkansas's defense led by Barry Odom, former coach of Missouri, now the defensive coordinator under Sam Pittman in Fayetteville. I think this is going to be a really interesting game. Not maybe 2 teams that are college football playoff caliber or any of that. This is just going to be a hard-nosed football game, and I think it's going to be something you're going to probably want to watch during that middle of the day time slot. SEC on CBS is pushed back later for a game we'll talk about in just 1 second. Then you have Texas A&M, Mississippi State. Mississippi State will be the home team at Davis Wade Stadium, ESPN, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock Central Time on ESPN. A&M, they got that big win. You all of a sudden start hearing, Kelly Mond is for real. I've been saying most experienced quarterback in the SEC, and he had yet to really show it. I mean, you were just he's played so much more than any of these other quarterbacks, and he looks worse than so many of them. And, we were kind of just waiting to see if he could really take that next step under Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher really needed a big statement win, and they got it at home. A big win against the number 4 Florida Gators, an upset. There were a lot of people in Kyle Field. If you saw the pictures, there were a lot of people in that student section. We'll see. We'll see if there's any changes next time a game's in Kyle Field. But now all the A&M people, we got a shot in Atlanta. We're going to the playoffs. We don't even have, they already lost Alabama. But we don't even have to go to the SEC Championship. We're just going to go right to the playoffs. They got some hard teams left, but we'll see. A&M tends to kind of get really high in the early the season and then really loop back down. So we're going to see what happens with the Aggies. Mississippi State, man, LSU's defense must stink because they made Mississippi State look like they could win the national championship right then and there. And we were all like, oh my gosh, KJ Costello, Mike Leach, this is just an unstoppable match made in heaven. And then they scored 2 points last week. I think they only scored, I don't even think they scored a touchdown the week before. And it's just really not looked good. Mississippi State joked and said, don't get on our hype train. Let me tell you, their bandwagon or whatever it is, it's in a ditch and it's burnt down. It's ashes. It's over. So we're going to see what can be changed with this Mississippi State squad. Then you have Florida State, North Carolina. Look at my graphic. Look at it. Do we really think North Carolina is the 5th best team in the country? No, we don't. Well, you might, but I don't. I think that's a little crazy. They beat Virginia Tech, but are they the 5th best team in the whole country? No, they're not. So we'll see. I think they'll beat Florida State today. I believe Mike Norvell will be back. It'll be in Doak Campbell Stadium, ABC. It'll be ABC Saturday night game, even though this won't get as many views as the real big Saturday night game that we'll talk about in a second. We'll see. I mean, Sam Howell, led by head coach Mac Brown, I mean, they are a good team. Don't get me wrong. They can compete with Notre Dame. Maybe they can even compete with Clemson. They don't play Clemson in the regular season. They would have to match up with them in an ACC championship game in Charlotte. But I don't know. I don't think they're the fifth best team in the country. They play Florida State. They should get a big one tonight. And then the game of the week, maybe even the game of the year up until this point, number 3 Georgia travels to Tuscaloosa to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide in Bryant-Denny Stadium. And this is just a big enough game on its own. This was getting plenty of hype. And then the middle of this week happened. Nick Saban tested positive for COVID-19. Alabama's athletic director tested positive for COVID-19. Everyone got scared the game might not even happen because it could be an outbreak on Alabama's side. That has not happened yet. But here's the crazy thing. So we're all like, okay, well, Nick Saban, I guess he's just not going to be able to be there. Wrong. If Nick Saban, starting on Thursday, if he tested negative for the virus, he didn't have it. If he tested negative Thursday morning, Friday morning, and Saturday morning, he can coach on Saturday night. If he tests negative 3 times, he's already tested negative Thursday and Friday morning. We're waiting for this morning's test to get back. I believe this morning is a rapid test. They normally have the ones that take 24 hours to get their... I don't know. All I know is this morning's we're going to find out not a day later, but like around noon. And, this game is at night on CBS. It's CBS's night game of the year. CBS also has a night game for the SEC, Alabama LSU, later in November because they have the Masters leading up into it. That's going to be a fun transition from Jim Nantz at the Masters to Brad Nessler, SEC on CBS. That's going to be a great day. Just keep your TV on CBS the entire way through. But we have a big game tonight. Mac Jones, Stetson Bennett. I think the matchup, it's strength on strength between Alabama's offense and Georgia's defense. That is going to be a matchup we're going to want to see. But, don't count out Alabama's defense did not look good last week. I know Nick Saban was really coaching him hard, but a lot of the week he wasn't there. So we're going to see how much of an improvement Alabama's defense really made over these last 7 days since they gave up over 40 points. It almost has a good offense, but they still gave up 40 points. We're going to see, I think this could be a little bit high scoring of a game. So we'll see how Nick Saban's coaching, all of that. We're going to break this down a lot more as we go ahead. That's it for our Saturday slate. Let's go ahead and get into our first segment. We're just calling this one COVID craziness, or, all the craziness that's just going on with COVID. It's just all the rescheduling. It's not a new sport, but it kind of is to some extent. There's just so much going on every week. You just don't even know, honestly, if 2 more games could get canceled just while we're doing this show. You really don't know until you watch that ball get kicked off that the teams are going to play. And that's what's so crazy is, they make these schedules years in advance. And then it comes down to something crazy like this to where, a day before a game, the game could just, not happen. So, that's why it's kind of COVID craziness. But let's go ahead and... let me put my water down. So we had some SEC rescheduling that came out this morning. So I'll go ahead and read that off to you. So there were 2 SEC games that are not happening today. First, Florida had a big outbreak. They had over 20 players, I believe, maybe 2 or 3 coaches test positive for COVID-19. That Florida LSU game that was going to be in Gainesville tonight, not happening today. Postponed. Let's see. It's going from October 17th today to December 12th. December 12th is the SEC's little, how do I phrase this? Oh, it's the SEC's bye week before the SEC championship game, and it's really their buffer week to reschedule games. Now, specifically on this LSU Florida, I am in the boat to think that we need to try and save this December 12th date for as long as possible. Meaning that we've already had Vanderbilt, Missouri also got postponed. Vanderbilt didn't had some problems. They were 3 players away last week from not meeting the, I believe, 53-man squad that you're required to have to play a game this year. They went under that. They aren't playing Missouri. we already have 2 games on that December 12th date. Well, I think we're going to have some more games potentially get postponed. I hope we don't, but we might. And so we're just going to have to see. I really think if you keep that date open as much as possible, it gives you more leeway when you get to the end of the season. Whereas if you already we're getting close to the end of the season, you might just have to start canceling games, and we don't want that to happen. So here is what has happened in all of the craziness that has gone on. So we've had a whole bunch of schedules kind of get moved around, but here is where we stand. First, you have Kentucky at Missouri, originally going to be Halloween night, is going to the 24th, October 24th. South Carolina at LSU is going to stay on October 24th, but we're moving game times to Saturday night on ESPN. Georgia, Kentucky is going from October 24th to Halloween. It'll be on noon on the SEC Network, right after SEC Nation. Then Missouri and Florida, they go from October 24th, or next week, to October 31st on the SEC alternate channel at night. So all of the schedule changing around was so that Missouri and Florida will not have to play next week. So Florida will not be playing next week because they're not going to be able to meet their requirements. So we've had a whole bunch of schedule news around. One of the things I thought they should have done, and I don't think they ended up doing, well, they didn't, is, LSU and Florida play today. Well, obviously that's not happening. Well, Auburn and LSU play Halloween night. And then LSU the next week, I believe they have a bye week, and then they play Alabama. So LSU will go Auburn, bye week, Alabama. Anyways, you would end up moving Auburn LSU to LSU's bye week, and then end up moving LSU Florida to Halloween, because Florida has a bye week. That doesn't affect Auburn. That would just mean Auburn would play LSU before Mississippi State. Where this would affect LSU and Florida is LSU would end up playing Auburn the week before Alabama, and Florida would end up playing LSU the week before Georgia. And they really complained. That was an option. They said that's too hard. Well, so what? A lot of teams do that, and I hate to say it, but you shouldn't let COVID get in your room. Like, it's kind of your fault. There are consequences, whatever. But ended up, that's not happening. We're moving it December 12th. So I think that's it for our COVID crazy segment. Well, the NFL has a whole bunch of crazy, but we're not going to get into that today. This is a college football show. So let's go ahead and get into our news segment, The Spread. I know we need like a little intro sound for that, The Spread. So we have Clemson is favored by 27 points over Georgia Tech. I don't know on this one. I think Georgia Tech, they could come out looking good. Maybe they could get something to go their way. But I think Clemson is a truly elite team. I think it's going to be really hard for Georgia Tech to win. I'm going to take Clemson on this one. Clemson, 27 over. I'm going to have to go with the Clemson Tigers. Then you have Auburn is favored by 3 over South Carolina. We'll see. I think that's really close. I was a little surprised. I'm going to definitely take Auburn in this one. I think Auburn will win by more than 3. I know Auburn in the rain and the crazy weather didn't look that great last week, but I really am going to have to go. I'm going to definitely go with the Tigers in this one. I don't know. I just think Auburn will definitely win by more than 3. Then you have Tennessee is favored by 6.5 over Kentucky. I think Kentucky could come out and surprise some people. Tennessee could not effectively run the ball last week, and I think that was definitely a major problem for them and why they couldn't win. I think they had negative rushing yards, actually. So we're going to see if they can change some things around. But I'm going to go with Kentucky on this one. I'm going to take Kentucky plus 6.5. I'm not taking Kentucky outright, but I think this is going to be a really close game. And then you have Alabama and Georgia. Can Georgia get over that hump? I know this is going to be a close game, but I think I'm going to end up going with Alabama in this one. I think Alabama has a really elite offense. I'm going to take Alabama minus 5. I think they'll beat them by more than 5 points. So I think it's going to be But I think it's going to be a really good game, and it wouldn't shock me if it was really close and Georgia won this one. So let's go ahead and get into our top 25 breakdown. We had a lot of movement in the poll, a little bit of a disagreement on my part. The North Carolina thing, there's a couple others. Let's go ahead and just show it right to you here on the Patrick Party pregame show. There it is, the Week 7 edition of the AP Top 25. Well, the Tigers ended up staying in first place. They blew out Miami last week, and Clemson remains the number 1 team in the country. Then you have Alabama followed by Georgia in 2. We know there'll be some change coming up in that one just after this week because, of course, they are playing each other. Then you have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the 4th spot. North Carolina all the way up in the 5th. We've kind of already discussed this to some extent. Is North Carolina the best team? Are they the best team? I don't know. I don't think North Carolina is the 5th best team in the country. But we'll be nice to them for today. Ohio State's in the 6th. They haven't played anybody yet. That's probably because, like I've said, the reason a lot of these, like Ohio State, we'll put it this way. Ohio State's better than North Carolina, but Ohio State hasn't played a game yet. And some people are not ranking Ohio State, and then the majority of people are, so it's kind of balancing out to 6. Oklahoma State all the way up in the 7th, and then Cincinnati all the way up in the 8th. Like, what? I don't know about all that. I do think Penn State's probably the 9th best team. Florida fell back all the way to 10. I think Florida would beat Cincinnati. A&M moved up to 11 after their big win. Oregon at 12. Miami fell back to 13. BYU at 14, who got a big win last night. Auburn at 15. I think that's a little... I think Auburn rightfully is probably the 15th best team. I don't know if BYU, Cincinnati, some of those schools are better than Auburn per se, but who knows? I'll be nice. Then you have Wisconsin in the 16, the 3rd ranked Big 12 team. I believe Oregon. No, USC popped in the poll. We'll talk about them in a second. Tennessee fell back to 18. SMU's right in front of them. Michigan is at 19 currently. Iowa State's at 20. They had that big upset over Oklahoma. People are starting to like them again. Then you have Kansas State kind of getting into the polls at 22. Virginia Tech right in at 23. Then you have Minnesota kind of easing on in, waiting for their season to start. Had a big year last year, won the Outback Bowl in the 24. And then to finish out the polls, USC is in the final spot at number 25. We'll see how USC can do this year, if they can really compete. They really need to try and win that Pac-12 South if they want to have a successful season. So that's going to do it for our AP Top 25 breakdown of the polls. So let's go ahead and get into our next segment, Over Under. We started this last week. I know some of y'all liked it, so we're going to keep it going here. Over Under. Right, so 76.5 for Ole Miss and Arkansas. I think it's two strong offenses. Felipe Franks had a great game last week. Like we said, he's inconsistent. We don't know what we're getting, but that Ole Miss defense stinks. Stinks. So, but I really think Arkansas has a good defense. I don't think Ole Miss is just going to go out and score 40 points this week. Maybe they will. But I think I'm going to go ahead and take the over on this one. I just think Ole Miss's offense is good enough to score enough points to win this game. Maybe they're not going to score in the 40s, but they're going to score enough to win. But I don't think Ole Miss's defense is very good either. I am going to go with the over on this one. So I'll take the over. Then we have Tennessee, Kentucky, over under 46. They're thinking this could be a low-scoring game. Tennessee couldn't run the ball. Kentucky has had some offensive problems too. I do think Kentucky, with their offensive line, that could really help them be able to establish the run in Knoxville. I'm going to take the over on this one. You just have to have one team get in the upper, you got to have both teams in the 20s, and one of them has to be like 28. I am going to take the over on this one. I just thought that was a little too low. Then you have Auburn, South Carolina, right at about 53. I'm going to take the under on this one. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring of a game. Will Muschamp, they're going to have a good defense. It's going to be a tough test for the Auburn Tigers. And then I think Auburn's defense can really improve. It was just really nasty conditions last week. Let's really see if they can get back to some good, hard-nosed Auburn defense led by Kevin Steele. and I really don't think South Carolina's offense is that good. But I'm going to take, what did I say, the under. I'm going to go with the under in this one. I think it's going to be pretty low scoring. I don't think South Carolina's offense is going to score too many points. Then we have Alabama, Georgia at 58.5. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring in this one. I think both teams could be in the 30s. I think Georgia has a really good defense, but we're just going to see. Alabama's got some elite talent. I'm going to take the over on this one. A lot of people think this is going to be a big shootout. I'm going to go with it as well. And we'll just keep it on this Alabama-Georgia talk because we're going to start our By the Numbers segment. Kind of break down some all-time matchups between Alabama and Georgia. Of course, we've had some historic matchups the last couple of times. The last 2 times Alabama and Georgia have faced off. You had the SEC championship. Well, let's start with the national championship game. Jalen Hurts, Georgia's up big at the half. Jalen Hurts is replaced by Tua Tagovailoa, just this freshman quarterback that's supposed to be pretty good. You've probably heard the name. Comes in, wins the national championship, throws that big pass in overtime to beat the Dogs in heartbreaking fashion in Atlanta. Then you have the SEC championship game. Tua's kind of hurt. Jalen comes in, steals the show, and wins the SEC championship. Comes back yet again against the Dogs and gets a big win for Alabama. So they've had 2 just classics just in the last couple of years. Alabama currently has a 5-game winning streak over Georgia starting in 2008. All-time series, Alabama leads 40-25 with 4 ties. And this is Alabama's longest win streak against the Dogs. Georgia also has had a 5-game winning streak against the Dogs. Alabama leads in just about all of these major stats: all-time record, national championships, conference championship, bowl games, wins all-time, bowl record, All-Americans. The only one they're tied in is Heisman winners. They both have 2, and they're tied for number 11th in the country when it comes to all the programs with 2 Heisman winners. So we'll see if Georgia can beat that 5-game or stop that 5-game losing streak they have to the Crimson Tide. Let's go ahead and get into our next By the Numbers game. Auburn and South Carolina. Well, Auburn's currently on an 8-game win streak. They tied once. I'm trying to see when they tied. I can't tell. But Auburn, I believe South Carolina has not beaten Auburn since, here it is, 1933. It's been a minute. Excuse me. If you're alive in 1933 and you're watching this, congratulations to you. So Auburn has really had South Carolina's number, but we'll see. Auburn leads in all the major stats. Auburn's biggest games against South Carolina, both of them in 2010 and the one in 2011. That SEC championship was big. First time South Carolina ever, and only time they've made it to the SEC championship so far. Auburn blew them out. I think it was the biggest, blowout in SEC championship history. I think LSU almost challenged that with Georgia this past year, but I think Auburn still holds that record. Then you have Tennessee and Kentucky. Tennessee leads this all-time series 81-25. Tennessee's on a 2-game winning streak the last 2 seasons, 18 and 19. They do have 9 ties. That's quite a lot. Tennessee's has been on a 26-game winning streak against the Vols at one point during, 80s, 90s. Yeah, the 80s and the 90s. All the way up, through 2009. Kentucky's been on a 4-game winning streak. And then Tennessee leads in all of the major categories except Heisman winners. They both have 0. So, that's that for them. But, Tennessee leads this all-time series. But this Kentucky team could be good. But a lot of people still like Jeremy Pruitt's squad this year to get yet another win and get that winning streak to 3. And then you have Clemson and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech leads this all-time series 50-32. But Clemson has had their number. Clemson's on a 5-game win streak. There were 2 ties as well. But Clemson has dominated it as of late. Clemson racked up a whole bunch of their wins. Let's see. Really from 18 all the way through the 70s. And then Clemson's won their fair share from there on out. Georgia Tech has been on a 15-game winning streak against Clemson. Clemson's biggest is 5 currently. So we'll see if Clemson can keep that going tonight. They do go pretty back and forth. Georgia Tech does have more national championships than Clemson with 4. And Georgia Tech's bowl record is better with a .556. Clemson is a 5.43. So that's going to be it for our By the Number segment. Let's go ahead and get into our Bingham's Breakdown. That could be a fun little soundbite we could have as we break down the matchups. We picked one game from each of the time slots that we're going to talk about. Let's go ahead and get started with Auburn, South Carolina. I think this is the best game of this early noon time slot. It'll be on ESPN Williams-Brice Stadium. Keys to look out for in this game. I think between that Auburn offense and that South Carolina defense, that's going to be a big matchup. You know Will Muschamp's squad is going to bring it. They're going to probably try and... I know they're going to really try and blitz Bo Nix a lot. That offensive line has struggled as of late, and Bo Nix doesn't do as great when he gets out of the pocket. Auburn's going to really... I think Auburn's game plan, it should just say in big bold letters, give Tank Bigsby the ball. He is just by far the best player on the field for the Tigers. He has had a career game the last couple of weeks. Every last week he's been the best game he's ever had in college. He is a true freshman, by the way. So I think Auburn's really going to just need to give Tank Bigsby the ball. Auburn defense, that defensive line has really struggled. And I'll say one of the things that has really hurt Auburn is the fact that if Auburn wants to get pressure on the quarterback, Auburn has had to straight up blitz. And when Auburn has to straight up blitz, there's openings and there's openings downfield. And I think that's something that Auburn really was fortunate in that had last year's. Auburn had such great defensive linemen that they could just have the standard 4 or even 3 players out there and just start blitzing. And that's really what they did against LSU, is they only had, I believe it was only 3 running at Joe Burrow, but it was Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson and Nick Coe. It was really strong players, and so they still got pressure, and Auburn could have as many people out covering all the wide receivers as possible. Auburn doesn't have the luxury of that this year. They're really going to need to work on that defensive alignment and really try to pressure the quarterback without having to intentionally blitz every single time. And then, of course, with KJ Britt being out, that definitely hurts Auburn. Auburn's linebackers, Owen Pappo and Jacoby McClain, they're really going to have to step up in this one. We'll just see how the Tigers can do. Roger McCreary is going to probably need to have a big game, but Auburn's going to have to stop South Carolina's run for sure. So I think it's going to be a big-time matchup. We'll make our picks in just a little bit here. We're going to make our picks live, so that'll be fun. A little bit different than we had in the last few weeks, but that'll do it for our Auburn-South Carolina breakdown. Then, I know, is this the sexiest matchup? No. Is there even a ranked team? No. But I think this is one you're going to want to watch on the SEC Network, 3:30, 2:30 Central, Arkansas and Ole Miss, a big-time matchup. The Hogs, they have looked good. You can tell this is a different team than they were in the Chad Morris era the last 2 years. Sam Pittman, I don't know what he's done, what pixie dust or magic he's put on his on those Hogs, but he is the head Hog and he has led them. I've been very surprised. People are like, oh, they're going 0-10. They already got a win. We're three weeks into this thing. I've been very impressed with Arkansas. Felipe Franks had a great game last week. Arkansas was able to run the ball with authority last week. I don't know if that... I think Arkansas is a good running game, but I know Sam Pittman coached up that offensive line. That's what he did at Georgia. I know they're strong in that category. But, Auburn's defensive line is also struggling. But Arkansas, I think they looked good, and, a couple things go their way, and they could have walked out of Jordan-Hare Stadium with the win. And then... Ole Miss, the lane train, they outcoached Alabama scheme-wise offensively last week. They scored over 40 points at home. Their defense wasn't able to hold on to get Ole Miss the win. Ole Miss offense looks great. Jordan Plumlee has looked great under Lane Kiffin. I really think Ole Miss is a good team. That defense is just so bad. If their defense could be half decent, they would have a really good team. I know Lane Kiffin's going to bring it on the offensive side, but Barry Odom, I keep saying, he is a good defensive coordinator. He was at Missouri for quite a while. He was their head coach. He's now with Sam Pittman in Arkansas. I think it's going to be a big game in Fayetteville, a game you're going to want to watch. I know it's not the greatest game ever. It's not two teams that you love. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see who comes out of Fayetteville with the win. And then the game of the week, the Patrick Party game of the week. Georgia, Alabama, 3-2, Bryant-Denny Stadium, SEC on CBS, night game. Obviously, reduced crowd, not going to be the same atmosphere, but it's going to be a great game. That Alabama offense against that Georgia defense is going to be so much fun to watch. Those two lines, Georgia's defensive line has been so strong. Alabama seems like they always have a great offensive line. Mac Jones throwing to all those just elite wide receivers, Waddle. It's really going to be a great game. But Stetson Bennett, they're going to have to bring it on Georgia's offensive side of the ball. They're going to have to be able to run the ball as well. I know Najee Harris is going to have a great game. The question is, will Georgia's offense do? But Alabama's defense has not looked good. And without Nick Saban in the building, I would like to see how big of a step Alabama's defense has taken from last week. I know he's been in Zoom meetings. They said even in Zooms during practice, he's had them rerun drills. It's been very different. I'm sure a bizarre experience for him. But if he tests negative this morning, he will be on the sidelines. And I think that's going to really help Alabama when they have their halftime adjustments. That's something he's been so strong in, is all of his adjustments. So we're going to see how this one turns out. I think it's going to be a great game. Can Kirby Smart get over the hump? Can a former Nick Saban assistant finally beat the master, an apprentice beat the master? Will Kirby Smart and Georgia get over the hump and finally beat the Tide in Bryant-Denny Stadium? It's going to be a great matchup, one you are not going to want to miss. A top 3 matchup. Who would not want to watch this? It's going to be a great, great game. Let's go ahead now, talk about the Patrick Party for just a little bit, and then we'll get into Patrick's picks as we kind of start to round it up here on the Patrick Party pregame show. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. So the Patrick Party, we didn't send out our newsletter yesterday. We are sending it out this morning before those games get started. So be on the lookout for that. We had a couple new subscribers last night, so thank you. You can, of course, subscribe on PatrickParty.com. We'll also have, it's going to be a refilming of what I'm about to do when we pick all of our games. So that'll be on our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, Patrick's Picks. Then we're also going to have our Instagram and Facebook polls. You can vote for the SEC games, who you think is going to win. And that's fun. I get to see who votes for who, so that's a lot of fun. Then tomorrow we'll have NFL Primetime with Patrick breaking down the NFL games, the ones that are still playing, and of course the Monday games. I don't think we have Tuesday Night Football this week. Then there'll also be our NFL polls. So we have a lot going on. And if the Braves go to the World Series, we might just have a big World Series show too. So we have a lot going on. Our newsletter will be sent out later today. And of course you can find everything exclusively on PatrickParty.com. So it looks like now it's going to be time to go ahead and get into our picks here on the Patrick Party pregame show. So welcome in. We're here on the Patrick Party pregame show, and it's time to make our picks here for yet another week of the college football season. Of course, you can find the Patrick Party pregame show on our YouTube channel and on PatrickParty.com, but let's go ahead and get right on into it. First, you have Clemson, Georgia Tech, a big-time matchup on ABC and Bobby Dodd Stadium at 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 Central. It's a big game, but I'm going to have to go with Clemson in this one. Jeff Collins, they've looked good so far, but Clemson's an elite team. And no offense, Georgia Tech, but you're not yet. Then you have Kentucky playing Tennessee. Tennessee fell back to 18. Could not run the ball effectively against Georgia. They will have to do that against Kentucky. This could be a big win for Kentucky, but I don't pick the upset special in this one. I like Tennessee at home in Neyland Stadium. Then we have Notre Dame hosting Louisville, Notre Dame Stadium, NBC, 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. A big game for the number 4 ranked Irish in the country. I like the Irish in this one. I don't think this one's going to be very close at all. Louisville has not been that great up to this point. Then we have Arkansas playing Ole Miss. One of the great games of today. I know it's not the sexiest game, but you're going to want to watch this. Razorback Stadium. I'm going to go with, I don't know. I'm going to go with Ole Miss. I think they're going to score lots of points, and I just think Ole Miss will score more points, and that's how you win a football game. Then you have the Texas A&M Aggies, number 11 in the land, traveling to Starkville at Davis Wade Stadium to take on Mississippi State. A&M, they're really getting excited, starting to puff that chest a little bit. A&M, calm down. I don't know if you're playoff caliber yet, but I think they'll beat Mississippi State. We'll see if Mike Leach can make an adjustment. It's kind of the crazy train with Mike Leach, or should we say the crazy pirate ship. but I'm picking the Aggies. Number 5, North Carolina. Number 5, who voted for that? I really think North Carolina's going to roll in this one in Doak Campbell Stadium. Florida State's had all kind of problems this year. When have they not had problems the last couple of years? I'm going with North Carolina picking this one, but I don't think they're the 5th best team in the country. Then you have Auburn traveling to Williams-Brice Stadium, ESPN, noon game right after College game day, taking on the South Carolina Gamecocks. Auburn, the number 15 team in the land. I like the Tigers in this one, pretty big. I think Auburn's offense is really going to shine in this one. I think Auburn's defense was going to look to make a lot of improvements after a whole nother week with Kevin Steele. And then the game of the week. Number 3, Georgia. Number 2, Alabama. Mac Jones, Stetson Bennett, Kirby Smart, maybe Nick Saban. We'll see how that all goes down. Bryant-Denny Stadium tonight, SEC on CBS, game of the week. At night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central Time. A big-time matchup, but I'm going with the Tide in this one. I don't think Georgia's going to get over the hump yet, and I think Alabama has an offense that is truly elite. That's going to do it for the Patrick Party pregame show today. I encourage you to check us out on patrickparty.com and, of course, on our YouTube page where you can find any of our previous shows. Have a wonderful, wonderful college football weekend.